You are watching Girls Talk TV with your host, Gigi.
Hi, I'm Layla Moughari. I'm a program associate at the Women's Learning Partnership. I focus on women's rights in Afghanistan, Iran, Palestine, and Turkey. Aside from the women's rights issues that I focus on at work, I've also become more and more interested in street harassment, especially since I met Holly. And Holly actually focused we went to graduate school together, so she focused her graduate thesis on that, and that's really when I started paying attention, and that's when I wanted to also contribute to the movement and also become an activist.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm here with Layla, and Layla, I absolutely enjoyed the discussion today and a lot of what you were saying, the facts and the stats that you were throwing out there. And so I want to thank you first for being a speaker at that event and allowing us to film it and letting our audience hear your knowledge about what's going on in Iran. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So how did you get started with this initiative?
I've just always, like I said, I've known Holly since graduate school. I've known her for 7 years this fall, and I've just been an admirer of her work. As I mentioned in the panel, I do think the discourse on street harassment has been changing. Before it was like, well, it's just a catcall, what's the big deal? But I do feel like with all these initiatives, I mean, Holly has just done so much to change the discourse. And but in addition to Holly's contributions, sites like Hollaback DC and Harassment, we heard Sasan on the panel. I do feel like there has been a change, and the discourse has been changing, and people are realizing that harassment can actually, it's not just about in a verbal exchange. It can also be really threatening, and it can also be the precursor to other acts of violence. It's a type of violence against women, and it can actually change people's decision making. I know Holly in her book, she cites one of her studies where she finds that a proportion of women do actually make big life-changing decisions based on harassment. People actually move, people change jobs, people change their routes home based on this sort of thing. So besides being a supporter, I can't say that I'm not. I haven't started my own blog or anything like that, but I do. I support her on social media and Twitter, and I try to and Facebook, and I try to repost and share and things like that. So I try to raise awareness and consciousness that way, because I think that is.
So how long have you been involved in the initiative?
I guess I've been actively watching this street harassment movement for at least a couple years.
Okay. Did you know it was such a big deal?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I experience it on a day-to-day level. I experience it all the time. I lived actually in this neighborhood for 4 years, and every day I was experiencing it in some way, shape, or form, and it can be really threatening, and it can be.
How do you think it's different from Iran versus over here? Is the level of harassment or the types of harassment different there than it is here?
Street harassment is a huge issue in Iran as well. As far as I know, there isn't any research out on it. But just like in the U.S., there isn't a ton of research to substantiate some of these numbers or to even like fill in the gaps.
Yeah. But your personal experience, how is it different?
My personal experience, I would say that street harassment in Iran is, I mean, it's more or less, it's about power. It's the same. It's about power. It's about making women feel uncomfortable or vulnerable, and exerting power over someone else. So I would say in that sense it's the same, but the experiences were slightly different, like different things were being said.
Why do you say that?
For example, in DC, most of the street harassment that I've experienced has been about the way that I look, or the way that I look, and just trying to get attention, trying to start a conversation. But some of the harassment that I experienced in Iran was directed at my nose, actually, and people commenting that because I have a nose job like many people in Iran.
Nothing wrong with that.
No. But that's I mean that was some of it. But then again, that's about a feature. That's about a physical feature as well. So it was a critique. It was a critique, but also about my body. So in that ways, it's similar.
It's still harassment.
It's still harassment, absolutely.
So what do you think men over there need to do in order to help decrease harassment on the streets?
I think that men in Iran, just like men in the U.S., need to not feel so entitled to comment on women's bodies and their appearance and the way that they look, and not feel entitled to talk to them or touch them or grope them, or worse. I think we need to change the culture. I think it's street harassment is just one symptom of larger structural inequalities. I think we need to start thinking about those larger structural inequalities like patriarchy or and things like that, and really start thinking about the larger issue as well, not just street harassment, even though that it's also valuable.
What do you think our government can do? Or do you feel like maybe it's out of the government's hand and it's a community issue?
I think it's everybody's issue, because most women and people that identify as LGBTQ and some men experience this type of harassment. I think the government. Well, an example that I've been thinking about a lot lately is harassment in the workplace. A lot has changed in the past several decades, and open harassing comments and touching and having your boss make inappropriate comments, or holding a job over your head if you don't execute certain acts. I mean, a lot of that was really commonplace decades ago, and a lot of that has changed because of laws that have been enacted. So even though I also think that is actually about patriarchy and men being superior to women, or I still think that public policies and changing the culture about harassment in the workplace has changed, and we have we've definitely seen a lot of gains. So.
Well, Layla, I'll give you this opportunity now to add anything that you wanted to add. If you wanted to look into the camera and direct something to a particular audience, whether it be young girls or guys who are doing harassment, I'll give you this time to take that opportunity.
Great. Well, thank you for being interested in street harassment. I think it's a really important issue, and I think more people need to be aware and conscious of it. And I think that we, as a movement, can really help to stop it by just changing the discourse. So I think that your voice is an important one, and thank you for your interest.
Thank you so much, Layla. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Join us online at girlstalktv.org and visit us on Facebook and Twitter too.